Hey everyone, my name's Nick, this is Jess. I'm going to be talking to Jess about her transition where she recently moved at the beginning of this year from working for a decade in gaming to moving to health technology. If I can just get a read on the room, put your hand up if you've heard of Flow Health. Yeah, it's usually about half the room, and that's for a very good reason. So Flow started life as a period tracker, but Flow is there to build a better future for female health by helping women harness the power of their body signals. So how do we do that? We take the body signals, and that could be symptom data, cycle data, and wearable data, and translate that into actionable insight for health, very simply. My background is I was CMO of Depop, which was a fashion marketplace, and then I led the European expansion of Nextdoor, which was a social network around Europe. But neither of those journeys was particularly directly competitive in App Store optimization. Very few people go to the App Store to search for a social network. They either know about you, or they don't, or they're invited. You're mostly dependent on organic growth. And for marketplaces, again, people don't go to the App Store to search for jeans. They have to find out about you from a different way. And so Flow's been really one of my first journeys in really competitive App Store optimization because of so many different period trackers on the market offering very different services, and because of the myriad of different reasons why people use Flow as well. So that's how I came to Flow. And Jess, however, spent a whole decade working in gaming, referencing, you saw a couple of screenshots there from Playticker referencing King. Jess, tell us how you started your ASO journey.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I started out in the world of e-commerce working for Dorothy Perkins, which is part of the fashion brand Arcadia. And then I was meant to travel around Australia for a month or two and ended up living there for 2 years, where I had a really fortunate opportunity to work for an independent retailer and set up their website from scratch. So UI, SEO, PPC, everything. And then back home in London is where I joined King. So I started out as a UA analyst, so the first look at marketing, app marketing, and then moved over to actually work on App Store optimization. So when I started at King, it was just myself. This was meant to be 50% of my role. Quickly escalated, as I'm sure we can all see, and I think for me, there was really a point where it was clear that, okay, ASO is a big thing. It needs to be more than just 50% of my time. It needs to be 100% of my time, and it needs to be a lot more of other people's time. So we need to make a team. We need to recruit. We need to prove the value in the business. So that's where I set up the team, which I've met some of them. They're here today as well. So I was there for just over 10 years, as mentioned, and now here at Flow.
If I can just ask about that moment as well, that moment when ASO became a thing at King, because obviously tremendously competitive industry in gaming, thousands of apps. How did you convince the business at the very beginning that it was worth investing in full-time optimizing what we all know in the room is the front page of that business?
It wasn't easy. I'm not going to lie. It was very, very challenging at times. I think there was a lack of data as well, so it was even more difficult to prove the value. A lot of people hadn't even heard of App Store optimization. I remember when I said I wanted to recruit people, there was no one with ASO experience, and Wolfgang even mentioned it at the beginning. Everyone says ASO, that's just SEO for the App Store. And it's not. So I think just generally growing awareness in the business of how important it could be, and almost selling the vision that the App Store is the storefront to the business. Everyone sees it. There needs to be time and effort put into it. And actually, when we started talking to the different stakeholders in the business, whether that was the game teams or even down to brand marketing, legal, everyone understood that actually this should be an area to focus on. And sort of happy to say that there's more tools and data available now to make it easier.
And entire conferences devoted to the topic as well. And so I think a lot of people in the audience would want to know, because you've been with App Store optimization from the very beginning, from the start of its existence, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in App Store optimization?
So definitely been a few, and as I mentioned, it's so good to see the visibility of data increase. Like, the platforms themselves have given more data. We have a new level of granularity, which I think really helps prove the business case for what ASO is doing. And again, it's easier to split it out by traffic source, user journey, who's coming in. So just that visibility definitely makes my life easier today than it was, say, 5-6 years ago. And I know a couple of speakers have touched on it already today, that the fact that Apple and Google both have native testing tools, they know that it's important to test assets in the stores. And not only that, there's the custom product pages, custom store listings. For me, it's clear that we need to have those personalized journeys, and the app stores are definitely sort of on board with that. So I think for me, they're probably the biggest ones. But also just in general, like you mentioned, this conference, there's more tools available, there's more networks. It's so nice to come to a conference and speak to other people about what you do, and they're having the same challenges. So yeah, just the pure scale of ASO now is completely different.
Okay. I'm so glad you decided to come and join us at Flow. And obviously you had a very successful career going in gaming, and you learned the trade, and suddenly from trying to sell a number of apps with a very different kind of motivation, suddenly you're trying to improve people's health. What a difference. What are the big differences you've learned in your short 3 months with Flow so far, between what you were doing in gaming to what you're now doing in health technology?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there. Like, for me, it's getting into the mind of that user. There's a completely different motive when someone wants to download a casual game versus wants to download an app like Flow. Casual gaming is much more bite-sized, grabbing attention, whereas with an app like Flow, and again, health tech space, they're looking for something, they need help, they want information. And I think it's really obvious to me that working in an app like Flow, there's a real responsibility to a bigger need, and to give those users that valid information that they need. So I definitely think it's that motive for download, and trying to tailor the stores to match those motives, I think is mainly crucial.
And we've seen recently some developments that everyone will know about that match the motive to the user as well, given that Flow does different things. It will help you try to conceive, it might be there to help you with your pregnancy journey, or it might simply be there to track your period. How has Flow been able to capitalize on using those different tools to match those motives?
Well, I think it's a perfect example of why it's great that there's custom product pages. It's great that we can do different targeting, because having an app store for one size fits all isn't always great. So, for example, with Flow, you can have tailored stores to those users. And again, trying to capture those motives in that first impression of the store.
Right, tailoring it to motives. And as we've recently learned with health technology, really tailoring it to locale as well. We've been on a bit of a journey on that the last 3 months, with learning how different storefronts can work in different countries based on different health needs, right?
Yeah, completely. And I think it's something I've always been passionate about, is localization of the App Store. There's huge opportunity in localizing per market, but especially for an app like Flow. Different medical information is available, different systems, different regulations, different guidelines. So I think there's even more opportunity to tailor those app stores. Yes, and most recently been working with feature. I mean, even down to, we know different colours work in different locales. So there's so many layers to the localization. It's not just about what users like, how they behave in the App Store. There's a lot of other guidelines and other levels of complexity you have to take into account.
We've spoken about the differences from moving to gaming to health technology in optimizing your storefront. Can you talk to us about some of the similarities?
Yes, I'm very pleased to say that was a relief, for sure. I'm a firm believer in that whatever you do, have a framework and have a hypothesis. No matter what you test, make sure there's a hypothesis. So even if you don't get the result you want, you get a learning. And then for me, no test is actually a failure. So I think if you have those fundamentals of testing frameworks, understanding of the tools, that's all very similar. And another thing that I was sort of, again, took from gaming to HealthTech. As we all know, in the App Store, you deal with so many different stakeholders. There's the brand teams, the apps themselves, legal, etc. You have to know everything that's going on in the business. Everyone comes through to the App Store. So where I've built relationships previously in gaming within King, you definitely have to take those skills over to whichever industry you're doing, because you can't build that strategy without having alignment with the business. But also, it's really exciting to join something that you're passionate about. And I think that brings insights not only from, say, myself to Flow, but vice versa. There's a lot of exciting bits as well.
Would you say there's been a move in App Store optimization from a tactical approach to more of a marketing approach? What I hear in a lot of the presentations today is, yes, the tactical, technical stuff, the examples, but also fundamentally what we're trying to do is we're trying to compel customers to install something to improve their lives or to play in their spare time, right? It's becoming more general marketing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a really important shift, and I'm really pleased. Not knowing names, but we've all seen gaming ads out there where completely misrepresentative of what the actual game is. They work, but yeah, it's completely different. And I think especially with apps like Flow out there is that added responsibility. You have to give the user what they want, but also you want to get those valuable users. So if you're misleading them at the very beginning of the funnel through to the App Store, they won't retain, they won't monetize. So it is about looking at it at that journey. And again, yeah, being more true, what's in the brand, what marketing can you leverage from the App Store? It's definitely, I think, a good shift, but definitely use apps and businesses are realizing the value in having, I think, that true identity to the app rather than just that bite-sized hacky approach, which it used to be.
Got it. For anyone in the room here who might be thinking, I'd really like to go and switch and work in health technology or in a different area, but is comfortable where they are, what advice would you give to those people now that you've gone to the other side?
I would say do it, but be patient. I think that's what I learned. I believe if you have, like I mentioned before, if you have those core fundamentals and a passion for the industry that you're going into, then it will be a really exciting move, a really good opportunity. But coming back to the motive and understanding those users and working with all those stakeholders to build that bigger roadmap and picture of ASO, that takes time. You need to research, you need to talk to teams, you need to really, really be patient and understand that. Otherwise, it won't succeed, or it might succeed. You might run a couple of tests and get some learnings, but I think for me, you really have to invest time and be excited about that industry. But as I said, if you organise, you understand the tools, you work well with people, then actually changing industry is quite nice.
There you go. You've spoken a couple of times about building an ASO team and how at the very beginning you had to create ASO roles and find people who were good at analytics and good at making compelling content because those roles didn't exist. Now that you're through that journey, and a couple of your team members are in the audience, at Flow as well, what do you think makes a great ASO hire?
Oh, good question. I think someone that has a mix of understanding data, loving data, wants to prove value, wants to use data, but has maybe also the creative side, because I think it is a real marry of data, but you have to think outside the box of creatives. How can we move the needle in what we're doing? And I think it's having that balanced approach, because again, in the App Store, you mix brand with analytics and data. So I think someone with that level head, but again, I think patience and willing to work with a lot of people. Everyone has opinion on what's in the App Store, so being able to deal with that, which is great sometimes. We all love feedback on the App Stores and what app icon will be changing. We do. But I think, someone that is open to feedback and handles it well, probably.
And it's a game of inches, right? You've got to test a lot, you've got to learn a lot, you've got to use that insight to help grow the business.
Mm-hmm.
And how much have you seen what you've learned from the storefront then influencing what happens in the store itself?
Mm-hmm. So I'd love to say that everything we test ends up on the storefront because we run amazing, compelling tests and we get really high confidence results. Not always the way, but I think, as I'm sure we all know, when we're testing, there's certain tools that you can use. You have to use those to your best ability, and when you upload to the actual storefront, it's not a like-for-like comparison. And sometimes it doesn't always go the way you potentially want. Does that answer your question?
Very much so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we're done with our questions today. For those of you who don't know Flow, it is the largest health app in the world. That's Sensor Tower data in terms of monthly active users and in terms of installs. So please check it out. 50 million monthly active users and growing fast. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.